Hello, good morning, and welcome to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. I'm Samson Lardy Anyenini, your host. The Office of Special Prosecutor. The Special Prosecutor has been baring his teeth at corruption and matters of conflict of interest, freezing the assets of Sir John, and taking some other steps that people are beginning to get excited that it is getting to work. But it says it needs a board and it needs cash. Anti-corruption campaigners suggest the board has not been inaugurated many months after the OSP was put in as a deliberate measure not to fight corruption, because the government is not interested in fighting corruption in reality. How true can that be? The IGP has been saying some really harsh words to the High Commissioner to Ghana from the UK. How is the Foreign Affairs Ministry resolving that and fix the country? They messed up big time and will not have a demonstration they sought to have. How do we examine these demonstrators, their organizers, who requested to be allowed to carry arms, weapons, and have their own private security protecting them, armed? The priority of priorities. President Akufo-Addo has said that the National Cathedral is a priority among priorities for him. Why? He made a pledge to his God ahead of the elections that if God helped him to win the elections, he will build him a cathedral. Now, questions are being asked. The government initially said that the cathedral will be built by churches and donations, and government had absolutely nothing to do with it. Then at a point in time, it came to announce that it will help facilitation of the process. Then again, it came to make it clearer that it was going to provide seed money. We do not know how much, and members of the government say people should simply stop asking the questions. How much of the taxpayers' money is to be committed to the president's personal pledge to his God? The minority in parliament is not excited that millions are being advanced to the National Cathedral project without Parliament approving same. How does government answer the questions that are arising as far as spending taxpayers' money on the National Cathedral are concerned? We'll be right back to deal with the vexed matters. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, as always, we put Ghana first. And here is Samson's take. A reminder of the new land law, which punishes land guardism and all the cheating going on, especially here in Accra. I title it, "Let us beware, beware." So I plan to write about the public flogging of those lovers in war, and to repeat the education that it is unlawful to administer, quote-unquote, instant justice, which I like to call instant injustice, even when people are caught breaking the law. Yes, even when they are caught breaking the law, you cannot constitute yourself to a prosecutor and a judge to administer justice to them. What we must always do as law-abiding citizens in a democracy of the rule of law is to do what the law commands: hand over suspects to police. But guess what? The people who did this in front of the Warner's palace insisted that that was their custom, and that they were punishing these people in accordance with their custom. They reportedly got a state attorney as a trained lawyer hired by the state, supporting their view. I tell you this, they see what happens in Accra, and I kid you not, it influences them a big deal. For the fear of losing votes, even political leaders defend or will rather not do anything about assault and vandalism in churches in the name of enforcing a custom on the ban on drumming and noise making. Traditional Authority declared a curfew in Kumasi over a funeral, and that was with state support. City authorities were applauded when they deployed guards with whips to flog people, make them squat and sweep dusty streets of Accra for breaching the law on using a footbridge. A mob killed a soldier, and it is taking forever to get justice, and in that process to deter such unlawful conduct. Party people literally got away attacking a court in broad daylight. Well, what do I know? So let me pause here and let me try minding my own business. Take a look at this thing that went viral, and it's a list that attracted my attention. It says 1 big ram, 2 white fowls, 1 crate of white eggs, 2 bottles of Castle Bridge, 1 bottle of whiskey, half a piece of white calico, and an amount of 30,000 Ghana cedis. Who sent this list out? Many of you are familiar with this. These are people who call themselves an Asafo group, and they are all over the place. And you get a land, they come to you and demand what they call digging fee. If you don't pay it, you are unable to develop the land that you legally acquired. So this went viral this week, and I felt the need to repeat the awareness creation about the new land law. Soon after its passage, I commenced education about it, brought the best of lawyers in land law on Newsfile to help us with the education. The legislator made it, and the president assented to it on December 23, 2020. So it is a law and must be obeyed. So now, if you were engaged in the fraud of selling land that does not belong to you, as though it were yours, you commit a crime and you will be forced to pay between 84,000 cedis and 180,000. Or you could face the possibility of going to jail, or even in addition to the fine, be thrown into jail for 7 to 15 years. By the law, this punishment also goes for people who engage in land transaction without authority. And these include chiefs who sell lands that don't belong to them, who are in the fraudulent conduct of selling one piece of land to 2 or more people. Of course, those who come asking for digging fee are also included. And in the law, in Section 12 of the Land Act, it says a person who unlawfully exercises or purports to exercise supervision of or control of land and development in a location and has no interest in that land stand the problem or the risk of being taken to jail to spend as many as 15 years. Again, the law says you have the right to go to a court without initiating a suit to ask for a restraining order to stop them from coming onto the property so that you can develop it in peace. I wish that what happens in Kumasi could also happen in Accra, where this double sale is clearly avoided. So let us beware. Thank you very much. And that is my take. Don't pay money to people who don't deserve it. Now, this show is brought to you by the candid sponsorship of Bank of Africa, as strong as a group and close as a partner. MTN everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 31 years. Waylead Properties, home is where one stars. And Duroplus, where Duroplus goes, water flows. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. I will introduce my guest to you shortly. But let's go listen to a number of people who had some very interesting things to say about the Office of Special Prosecutor when he began to, as it were, crack the whip, and issues about his capacity to operate fully came to the fore in the course of the week. Listen to this.
Once you don't have a board in place, you don't have the technical expertise, you're not likely to get approval for the kind of budgets that allow heavy investment, because there's likely to be a cap on what you can do by yourself. It has serious implications on the speed with which the Special Prosecutor's Office can deliver on its mandate. And that office is becoming even much more relevant given the number of incidents that have come up and the public has raised their voices, and there's an interest being taken on. But those cases to be investigated in the short term, and for the Special Prosecutor to come back with feedback to update the public, and therefore to move the process forward to, let's say, prosecution and what have you, the board ought to be in place. 9 months is too many months gone quiet, especially when we know that the various agencies have submitted some name already.
Yes. He's frozen the assets of Sir John. I'm bound to say he has done very well. But I think that he also, he has not done as much as I expected. Because if the board was not being constituted, he should have come out. So we also want to tell him that, look, next time he should be more forthright. Because he's supposed to be independent. So if he doesn't have the board and he's quiet about it, I mean, it's not a good thing. Mr. Kitie Jabe was earning a living as a private legal practitioner. I don't expect that he will be cozy with government. If your board is not being constituted, come out. Okay? So yes, I'm very excited that he's losing the assets of Sir John. But in the same breath, I'm not happy at all that he kept mute whilst his board was not constituted.
I am puzzled by the whole issue of the board, because we submitted the nominee for the anti-corruption organizations in March, and I know that all the agencies has also submitted their nominations. So I don't understand why just the inauguration is becoming a problem. It would definitely be a big problem for the OSP, because the way the governance architecture is designed, for him to get in senior officers, directors, and so on, he needs the advice of the board. And without that, they cannot legitimately sort of work. So I really, it's a puzzle to me why this has dragged on. I'll really urge and appeal to government to really just, within a few days, just get this inauguration done so that he can get on with his work.
Some will say these are the very basics for the office to function. But after all these years, the issue about whether we are really serious about the fight against corruption comes up. Are we really serious about it?
I think that's the question, and it's the right question to ask, because, we cannot keep making these statements that the OSP is one of our key interventions for fighting corruption, and yet our actions don't speak loud enough that we want to make that institution work. So I really think that this is not good, even in terms of the resources. Yes, I know that the situation is very difficult for the finance ministry and everyone, but the OSP's mandate, and from a preventive point of view, even in recovering assets of proceeds of crime, I think it's an investment that the government has to make, so that even if money is tight, the OSP has to be prioritized in the way in which monies are released. It's not particularly because he has to do a lot of heavy lifting at the beginning, because the office is now being set up. He needs his resources very early. If he's released in this way, he cannot really operate.
We in civil society or you citizens are not putting enough pressure on the president to do what he's expected to do. Some of us have talked about it on air, but we need the anti-corruption and other institutions to come out with press releases calling on the president to appoint the board. My checks have shown that the president said, those who are there should continue. But you haven't made that statement publicly. You need to officially announce that they should go ahead and even inaugurate them again. Besides, some of the people on the board are no longer with their institutions. They were representing their institutions and they have proceeded on retirement. So you need to ask them to replace those people. And if those people are coming in, they need to be inaugurated and even to declare their assets. So much as you may want to blame citizens, the president has a list of institutions that is required by law to appoint boards of directors and inaugurate them. Why is he not doing it?
Right, so you've been listening to Martin Pebu, Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante, Vitus Azim, and Adam Senanu on the absence of a board for the OSP, as well as the lack of equipment and facility for it to be able to work and do the work the way he feels, or that office feels, is important. The OSP made a request for the approval of 1 billion Ghana cedis. That's the budget it sought to set up the office, build a cybersecurity and forensic lab, and cells to keep suspects, and also purchase other logistics. As we understand, the Ministry of Finance committed only about 170 million, out of which only 10 million has been released. Only 10 million has been released. People are asking questions if we can have as much as 25 million and a whole lot more even ahead. Money in excess of 70 million to commit to building a cathedral, which we said is for the churches to do. Why not equipped to fight the corruption? So people are asking the question. The president, in his campaign, said that doing this office was a very important way to fight corruption. So he made a promise. And when he came into office, followed it up quickly the law was passed. So why must it take CSOs and other individuals to put pressure on him to make the institution he believes will fight corruption, because he came to fight corruption, to work? Some just don't understand how that works. Okay, maybe my guests who are joining me now may have some answers to that. Mary Awalana Ada is Programs Manager, Ghana Integrity Initiative. Professor Kojua Piejetua is with the School of Law, University of Ghana. And here in the studio is Joseph Dindiok Penka, former Deputy Attorney General and Minister for Justice. We'll also be joined by Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, MP for North Tongue and Ranking Member, Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament. Thank you very much. Now, Mary, that's the question I really ask. Why should it be the job of anybody to pressurize a president that made this the most important tool to fight corruption, campaigned on it, and told the whole world that I promise, I have delivered, and I'm fighting corruption for you? Why should anybody be the one to pressurize him to make it functional?
Thank you very much, Samson. Let me say good morning to your viewers and also the other panelists. That is the million-dollar question we should be asking the president. It is interesting, somehow mind-boggling, that for a president who decided that our current circumstances and the Constitution, the best way to go was for the establishment of an office that will promote the fight against corruption. And as quickly as 2017, ensured that that box was ticked and started work. Somehow things didn't go well. But then in his second term, he has appointed somebody who has shown that he is committed to fight corruption. So you ask yourself, what at all is the serious stuff that we need to ensure that we constitute the board? 9 months after the person has taken office, and let's say that about 3 months after the list for the various institutions that are supposed to constitute the OSP board have been submitted to the chief of staff. After several reminders have been sent, let's be very frank and say that it is no more interesting at all. We should call a spade and say that our president, even though he has promised to fight corruption, has not shown that significantly per his actions when it comes to the office of the special prosecutor. I say so because the composition of the board is such that it is institutional. And so the institutions present the list, and the list is submitted to the presidency so that these people are sworn in to take charge of the office. And I'm saying that the commitment is not being shown by action, because if this gentleman is supposed to work, the board should give him strategic guidance and direction. Again, per his act, the board is supposed to ensure that they advise him on recruitment, particularly of certain staff. And I was saying on another Joy platform that I have personally been to that office on 2-3 occasions. And on the beautiful building he has been assigned, which is true, 9th-floor building, it is just the 9th floor that is being is fit for purpose for now, where they are using. The other floors are supposed to be retrofitted for his purposes. He does not have the staff to work with. How on earth can we say that in such an instance, this person with just a few people he is working with can execute the mandate for which we have given him? It is surprising that this is happening, and it's not pleasurable at all to speak to, because there is nothing. It's not like you are picking from a list of people and you need to select to please people and make others happy, or the fear of not making others happy. That is not the case. This is a very straightforward matter. Institutions have presented their list. Whether you like them or not, these institutions have presented as the mandate of the act is saying. They have sent the list. Why won't you inaugurate them to carry on with their work? And if they do not do, then we come back to say that then it is the board which is not functioning well. But in this case, the challenge is with the presidency. And the $1 million question is for the president to answer to, because I do not see the hindrance whatsoever. And the special prosecutor is currently showing that he would do the work.
Even in such circumstances, would you say it is fair, the accusation that this is a testament that the president is only paying lip service to this fight and nothing more?
Something I would say that in some instances he has done something, and the analysis would show that he has done something. By even setting up the office, he has ticked that box. He indicated he has been the president who has provided more resources to the institutions. And Shrike, for instance, has mentioned in the past that this is true per the trend. Unfortunately, fighting corruption goes beyond just giving a little money. When people want 1 billion, you give them 170 million. It is not commitment enough. When the president said he was going to fight corruption, the people of Ghana trusted him on those promises he made per his campaign. And we voted for him on that. And so the mantra, seriously, is just too much. Talking. And the action is not showing.
Well,
now that somebody wants to show action, let us say that. So when people say, to conclude, when people say that the president is talking without matching the talk with action, in a lot of instances, perhaps maybe more than half of it, it is the case.
All right. You say the government has given 170 million instead of the 1 billion that the OSP sought. The fact is that the government has committed 170. It hasn't given 170. It has given only 10 million. Now
yes,
the question...
Even the 10 million, even the 10 million from my check, I do not think from January to June they have received 10 million.
Okay.
I may be proved wrong, but they have not received that 10 million as an office. If that is not correct, perhaps they can correct that impression. And we are talking about 6 months into the year, and this office needs to start work. We know for a fact, just like I
well, what we know is that 10 million has been released by the ministry. So if they have not, as it were, secured that money yet, then that would be another issue. But the next question is this. We understand that the OSP feels that the new OSP feels that he needs to build a separate, independent cybersecurity and forensic laboratory. He's come under, some challenge where others say, well, others have these laboratories already. You should just, try and make do with what the police may have, what may be is it the Bank of Ghana somewhere, that institution within the FIC also has. The Financial Intelligence Unit may also have. The OSP's justification, we have heard from elsewhere, from sources within the OSP, is that, look, we need to have an independent lab. We don't want to mix up with any other people because we see how ineffective things are going on. For example, in the Ejenim Boateng Ejei situation, where his over 440 million was frozen. Anytime money hit his account, within the very short time that he was getting all these monies that were deemed to be, corrupt money, anytime his bank money hit his bank account in the hundreds of thousands of dollars into his accounts, the banks will give the necessary alert because they are required by law to alert the Financial Intelligence Unit. They will give the necessary alert, but it looks like people were not taking action. And they feel that they want to be independent in this. They don't want to use people's things where people will see the things they do and might alert, criminal suspects to get away. Do you think it is a fair thing to ask for, that they should be giving a new one altogether, independent from the one or two that is in the country already?
Something. If we want to fight corruption, then we must show some seriousness. This is what the gentleman says he needs. And I couldn't agree more, particularly when we know that in the past, things have not happened right. The gentleman you referenced, we know that the assets that were frozen got unfrozen. And if the OSP has his own logistics to track some of these, I believe this wouldn't have happened. And so if he says he needs an independent forensic lab, let the people of Ghana invest in this. Fighting corruption is an expensive venture. But let us remember that the monies we lose yearly to corruption is so huge that what we should be investing in ensuring that we don't lose those monies would be just a peanut compared to what we are losing already when we look at the monies that are being drained out of the national kitty due to corruption. And so if you say that they want a forensic lab, I believe it is not too much to ask. And as a people, if we believe that we are prioritizing the fight against corruption, then it is not wrong that we invest in this to ensure that he tackles the monster of corruption going forward.
Right.
Again, let me say, admittedly, our resources are not in a good place for now. But that does not mean that his request is not valid. And let's also go back to compare what is the existing relationship between these anti-corruption and accountability agencies. Is it that rosy? Have they had a relationship where you know for sure that some of these things can happen on a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week basis where every information is flowing? We know that interagency collaboration has not been the best in this country. And so let's not deceive ourselves that, because the Bank of Ghana you would have access to it, it will work like clockwork. I don't believe that is what would happen. So if what he needs to operationalize the office is given to him, then he would have no reason to justify failure.
Okay.
So let's commit.
All right.
We are committed to ensure that we do this.
However, very final question to you. However, you are the anti-corruption forefront in the NGO space. Are happy that despite the constraints, the OSP is beginning to show that it is ready to fight the people who are plundering the states, right?
Certainly, we are beginning to see some action. And the action that is being exhibited by the OSP only goes to show that if we give him the needed support and we give him the needed logistics, something will come out of this struggle. And I believe the trust of the people would then be regained, because it is only when we tackle this monster and tackle those who want to take this nation for a ride, ensuring that they enrich themselves, their cronies, and then those politically exposed persons around them. If we tackle this monster holistically, we would be making some significant inroads. But we need to support him, and we need to also ensure that we fight corruption by reporting and saying something when we see something going wrong.
Thank you very much. Mary Awalana Ada is Programs Manager, Ghana Integrity Initiative. And we needed to deal with her and so let her go because she has some pressing matter to attend to right now. Thank you very much indeed. Professor Kojo Appiah-Jaitua of the School of Law, University of Ghana, is still with us online. And also here in the studio is Joseph Dindiok Penka, who is former Deputy Attorney General and Minister for Justice. So before we go to Professor PJ, maybe we should hear from you. You may know better than we do because you are in government, so to speak. Yes, so what's going on? Is the president not as interested as he was in a hurry to sign the law into the bill into law and all that 9 months after he got into office?
Thanks,
no board.
Samson. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thanks to my co-panelists on the program. And good morning to our viewers. First of all, Samson, let's situate whatever arguments we are making with respect to the office of the special prosecutor within a certain context, and then we'll get it right. Now, it is agreeable, and there's no debate about it, that as part of his campaign message to Ghanaians, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo had promised that he was going to ensure that he decoupled this particular function of the Office of Attorney General from that office and cede it to the Office of Special Prosecutor to ensure that the fight against corruption in our country is taken to another level. That is not in debate at all.
And we all applauded that.
Yes.
Everybody was happy because we know, and it has been confessed even by attorney generals, that the attorneys general, that it is almost impossible,
near impossible,
for a party person in that office to prosecute their own.
You look at the person in the face that you sit together all the time to take decisions about your party and all that. You look at the person in the face. And so if you look at the memorandum that accompanied the bill itself, it states this very clearly, the policy rationale behind why the Office of the Special Prosecutor was necessary now than ever before. Because right from 92, we found that if you look at political think tanks and other groups, political interest groups and all that, they've all come to the conclusion that there's no debate about it. There is the need for us to have this particular office and have it functioning so that we can take the fight against corruption and corruption-related offenses to another level. Samson, again, you talked about the commitment. Let me first state that when we came into office and His Excellency the President mandated the Office of Attorney General to craft this bill in a manner that it will not sin against Article 88 and all that, it was done with expedition. You remember, I recall that I stated on this platform that I was privileged to lead a delegation to the US to study their system, which is ad hoc anyway, and see how we could replicate that in a better form by having a permanent office, which has culminated in this office that all of us have commended. Now, to the substantive matter as to whether or not the office has been resourced and given what it needs to be able to carry out its mandate as required by the Act. Now, first, let me state that when the Venerable Martin Alamisi Amidu came into office, he was given a small place, and he complained time and again that the space was too small. And quite clearly, I agreed with him that the space was too small for him to be able to operate and carry out his mandate well. So what did His Excellency the President do? You recall again that another state institution that had put up a very magnificent edifice for its office accommodation and etc., had to cede it to the Office of the Special Prosecutor. What does that tell you? Priority. Because that other state institution is in a small accommodation that is not good enough for its status and is not able to accommodate all its staff. They spend so much to put up that magnificent edifice you see. And then His Excellency the President himself comes in and says that, look, where you are for now, that particular state institution, and I'm not afraid of stating it, the GET fund, where you are for now is good for you, so remain there for some time. That building you put up to move in, we're going to give that to the special prosecutor.
But I'm sure that the facts as we know them, it's not that the entire building is for the special prosecutor.
No.
They are supposed to use some of
it. Of course, you know that, what are they going to do with all that?
And Martin Amidu's argument at the time, if I remember
he said
correctly, was that he didn't want to live
with any other institution
in a premises where he will share with some other institutions.
Yes, that was his argument. But the point I'm making is that what has been given to the special prosecutor is enough. The accommodation is enough to accommodate the office and then the staff.
That's right.
So that's another step we ought to commend. Now, the other step is equipping the office and then recruiting staff.
That's right.
Which started under the old OSP. And of course, he could not complete it before he tendered in his resignation until the appointment of Kisi Ajebe.
He barely started the recruitment.
He barely started it, yes. They advertised. But before the interviews could be conducted and due diligence done for them to be recruited, he left office. Again, let me state this. When Kisi Ajebe was appointed OSP, I sat on this platform and poured out all the accolades on him. And I said, as I knew him as a schoolmate in Legon, he was very much capable and competent to handle that job. There were questions about age. You recall. Today, by some of the moves that have been made so far, some of us feel vindicated. And we think that, given the support, he will take the fight against corruption to another level. I am not in any doubt at all.
Is it not too early to be feeling vindicated?
Yesterday I had a conversation with another friend, and he said a similar thing as you are raising, that it was too early to start celebrating the success of the Office of Special Prosecutor as occupied by Kisi Ajebe. And I said that among my people, that chick that will grow to become a big cock is known immediately it is hatched. You know, and the one that will become a weakling is also known immediately it is hatched.
Right. So they've started commendable work. The question now is the needed finances. The board 9 months on is not in. The capacity they need, they can't have it.
Let me just state again that the conclusions that I heard from the panelists and then your good self may be a little erroneous because it hasn't been 9 months. It has been 9 months since he went into office, but it hasn't been 9 months since the board expired. And if you recall, one of the anti-corruption agencies head stated, yes, he stated that they presented the name in March.
No, but Mary actually said that everything was ready 3 months ago.
Yes. So assuming that it was ready 3 months ago, we could not stretch it to 9 months ago, you know. So yes, the Office of Special Prosecutor needs the board now than ever before because, as rightly pointed out, without the board, he's unable to take major decisions because he's only able to take administrative decisions that confine him to his limit as far as spending is concerned and etc. But again, remember that this is a very sensitive state institution. And after the other agencies have appointed their representatives as mandated by the Act, the Office of the President is also supposed to appoint some people in addition to, so that the whole board will be properly constituted. And remember that the President's office has to also be cautious and careful to appoint people of high integrity and moral standing who will be able to assist the Office of Special Prosecutor to carry out the mandate as mandated by the Act. If you rush to appoint people who go there and have questions to answer, then it will defeat the very purpose for which you are supposed to do that. You may say that, yes, there's undue delay, but sometimes it is done because you need to do due diligence to clear those who are supposed to be appointed to such positions because of the sensitive nature of that particular mandate that you're supposed to carry out as an appointee of government. So it is better to take your time, do due diligence, and appoint these people than rush and appoint people who will have questions to answer, and then another round of debate will begin so that we'll have an unending piece of debate among ourselves. So I will say that, yes, there may have been some delay in the appointments, but it is for due diligence to be conducted. And I know sooner than later, the board will be inaugurated and this will become history so that they can assist the special prosecutor to carry out his mandate. You also spoke about finance.
We take this as the official response.
Oh, sooner than later.
That it is because of the sensitive nature of the office.
Yes. There need to be a lot of...
And they need to be careful who to appoint.
Yes.
But the law has listed those who will come onto the board already.
Yes, but I'm saying that...
this institution brings this institution brings, and then there will be a chairperson.
Yes, but that's why I'm saying that there are a number of them supposed to be appointed by the Office of the President. The President is mandated to appoint some.
Right.
Yes, the state is not only the anti-corruption institutions and other state institutions. You recall that, for example, we have a rep from IOCO, we have a rep from the office of those who are mandated to look at drug regulations in this particular country, the police service, they are represented, and etc. So those institutions, very easy to present their names because they have, and remember that even also when those institutions are presented their names, there has to be some security checks on their backgrounds to ascertain whether or not they have any questions.
I think we should go to the question of the funding.
Yes, I'm moving there. So now to the question of funding, something again, I have been in Parliament. I've been privileged to be in Parliament for 4 years.
I'm trying to rake up the law, but because as far as I know, I think there's none that the president appoints.
The president is supposed to appoint. I can tell you for sure.
Okay,
because
so let me bring up the law and then we'll look at the particular portion. Okay,
so,
go ahead.
So the funding aspect, you see, you may be talking about how much has been released and etc. But I don't know of any state institution, as far as I've been in Parliament for 4 years, that requested for a particular amount of money and was given everything. I don't know of any such state institution because we are living within limited resources that are available in the national kitty for distribution to the various agencies and state institutions. So in the midst of constraints, you have to re-engineer it in a manner that it will distribute to the various agencies so that it does not still affect the management of the. I remember that the Ministry of Finance is the one mandated to carry out this particular aspect of our life. So as an agency responsible for this, the ministry is mindful of the fact that it has a certain envelope, and within that envelope has to spend. It cannot spend outside of that. So if the ministry has 10 cities to spend and it has to distribute it among all state institutions, and OSP is giving 170 million, and 10 million of that money has been released. Subsequently, the other money will be released based on request placed and availability of funding, because the ministry doesn't have an ending funding. It may be unfortunate that they are not resourced enough, but as time evolves, I know for sure that we will meet these things. And when we have fully established the various structures, okay, the prosecutorial, the investigative, and asset recovery aspects, you know that they are all departments within the Office of Special Prosecutor. You have those who will do the investigations, those who will do the prosecution, and those who will do the assets recovery. These are all supposed to be under the Office of Special Prosecutor. So when we have finally established all these things, the yearly budgetary allocation definitely will come down, because the demand for more money based on staff recruitment, office equipment, staff salary, and etc. will also reduce. But for a start, you have this huge demand, which you know for sure that it is impossible, okay, to give all such money at a go to the entity because of competing demands in other equally important departments of state. So yes, the funding has not been adequate, but has been very serious effort on the part of government by way of commitment, getting the office allocation and not etc. And the law itself even coming into effect and force in the appointment of the officer to be in charge. That mandate alone, and by what the office is doing now, having arraigned a number of individuals before court, and actually setting up others again for investigation and prosecution, we ought to commend and say there is a step forward, so that we can engineer.
I think that's not in doubt. Many are commending the OSP already for those steps. The Section 5 talks about those to be sort of appointed, but if you look at it in real terms, it is a selection, 7 of all, by the various institutions that have been named, a representative from the Ghana Police Service of a certain rank, a representative of the IOCO of a certain rank, a representative of the Financial Intelligence Center of a certain rank, a representative of SHRAJ, one person with a background in intelligence, not below the rank of a director nominated by the minister responsible for national security. There's one person who is a female representing the anti-corruption civil society organization, you know, and then they, together with the OSP and the deputy, definitely will form the board. But of course, the law will say the president will do this appointment in pursuant to Article 70 of the Act. But in actual sense, they are sort of, if you like, group of people coming from various institutions outside the OSP. Sorry, let me go to Professor Kujura Piejetua now. Prof, what do you make of the concerns that are being raised about the funding, the need to set up independent and separate forensic laboratory, create a cell, if you like, call it a holding cell or whatever it is, and the questioning of the board as well? What do you have to say?
Thank you, Samson, for the opportunity to be with the discussion this morning. So I think that having listened to the discussions and the comments made, my view on the subject is that we should see corruption as a very complex phenomenon, and we should identify the beneficiaries and the victims when corruption is in place. We have international actors that benefit from corruption, and we have local actors, we have government institutions, and the seat of government itself all being part of the stakeholders when we are talking about the subject matter of corruption. But if corruption would thrive, it's about how the government is properly positioned and the government's commitment to fighting corruption that to make all the difference. Because in a lot of ways, government itself is also a beneficiary of corruption. Sometimes it pays lip service to fighting corruption. So the approach may be different in different jurisdictions or in different ways. In the particular context of Ghana, we see a situation where we have shown the commitment to fight corruption in word and in the law, but in action, it seems to be something different. And because corruption is complex and interconnected, it's connected to the economy, it's connected to social status, it's connected to governance. It is a harder-headed problem that needs to be tackled from a perspective that will ensure that we're able to see the results. It is not just the law that will make the difference, but at the end of the day, what is the substantive results that we can see on the ground? We have seen how the government's record on corruption has come down. Looking at the integrity, the corruption watch annual reports that they give, and that tells you that the corruption fight is being waged simply by way of the laws that we have in place. And the laws are not working, or they are not being allowed to work. And so that is what we are, the situation we have now.
You see, yeah, Professor Bafo Ajimendia, Professor Bafo Ajimendia, Chief Executive of the Officer of the John Kufuor Foundation, have joined others expressing a lot of concern, and they speak about worsening corruption. And therefore, this is an organization that you need to give priority attention to and not give any excuses. If the board, the term of the board is to expire, you don't wait for it to expire and then so many months later, you now are constituting the team. That should be done in anticipation. We said a while ago that from what we know from the finance ministry, it does appear that it's 10 million out of the 170 million committed to the institution's budget has been released. But my information now, very credible source, is that it's actually 6 million and not 10 million, even though they asked for 1 billion. It's 6 million, and even that 6 million has not been given, it's not with them yet.
Yes, so that is the point. So we can count a slew of laws that's supposed to deal with corruption from different perspectives. We have criminal law, specifically within the Criminal and Other Offences Act. We have most recently the most beautiful anti-corruption law we can talk about, probably in the whole world, the OSP office. And we know the constraints that have been put in the way of the office. So it doesn't prove to me, and of course, all well-meaning people, that we are serious about fighting corruption. It's a way of doing some public relations gimmick that we are fighting it, but at the end of the day, we are not, because corruption keeps governments going. And I'm not saying that the government as a whole is corrupt, but there are some actors within the system. The clientelism is very high, and we have some sort of a new patrimonial system where we have a person at the top as a high figure, and people are feeding off this person consciously or unconsciously, without the connivance of the person in power. But because the structures have been weakened and compliance has been low and implementation is poor, these things happen sometimes on the blind side of the president and some of his people. We know, for example, that the president has been declaring his assets, but a whole number of ministers have not been doing that. And so what does that tell you? It tells us that there's some weaknesses in the system that are being exploited. We can look at the case of the Anyenini example. So at the end of the day, we should look at the institutions, the structures, the personnel, and the society's perception and appreciation, and whether they trust such an office to work. Because at the end of the day, the society that is going to give the information to the institution to be able to then fish out and investigate and prosecute the people. If the trust with the society is not there, we have a problem. The personnel, we can have the personnel, but if that person is not committed, we are seeing good signs that Mr. Kisejabin will work, will make the thing work, will make the office work. So personnel leadership is critical. But at the end of the day, the stumbling blocks put in the way of Mr. Martin Amedu should not be forgotten. The fact that there will be other investigations going on alongside this reports that a complaint has been issued to him. And this on the side investigation team come up with this report before that of the office of the OSP, the OSP, and then we see a situation where it will compromise the ability of the OSP to come up with its own findings.
So Prof, let's move away from Martin. And Martin had his own issues, including that he didn't want to share with whatever. But we understand that the new building now, that whole edifice, is for this, dedicated to the OSP's office. Now, for a president, like Penka just said, a president who has gone all this way to ensure that this beautiful edifice, is it 9-story or so, has been made available, and the institution that put it up has been deprived of its use. That sounds like priority. A president who set up this institution and then, appointed, quote unquote, his enemy, opponent, to be the foundation special prosecutor. All of that shows commitment. So if they need 1 billion and there's been a commitment of 170, and halfway into the year, only 6 million has been released, and even the 6 million has not hit the account, should the suspicion be that this is deliberate, intended to sort of muzzle them from being able to operate?
That is exactly my point. It is deliberate, and it is designed to ensure that the office will not function and function properly. Because if it is functioning properly, like I said, corruption is tied to governance. And governance, as one political scientist puts it, it's about self-interest. But it's about the level of self-interest that we're talking about. And also the institutions that are in place to check the self-interest or the execution of a self-interest agenda. So if we have a situation where in our current political system, corruption thrives because governance thrives on corruption, then those who are working with the government are benefiting from the corruption that is ongoing. And therefore, they will not make the system work, because if it works, then they are going to be exposed. If you look at the current situation, how much we lose through corruption. One statistics indicate that we lose $3 billion a year through corruption. The office needs 1 billion cedis to do its work, and we are going to save $3 billion a year. We are talking about how much we can get from e-levy and so on. Corruption can be, tackling corruption can be a major way of saving the country so much money. And corruption doesn't only affect governance or the economy. It affects crime, transnational organized crime. Corruption is a system on its own that people use to make profit, but it also aids in the commission of other crimes. So that is why it should be given priority attention more than any other activity that we see the government embarking on. Because at the end of the day, if it is properly set up and it is working, it's going to weed out the corrupt personnel and the corrupt systems that are taking place. And Ghana will be the better place for it.
Well, let's pretend for a moment that even the 6 million halfway into the year has been released. The 1 billion that he seeks as a budget to make his office a lot more, as it were, functional, is that not asking too much of a country whose economy is hit in the manner we are now after COVID and now Ukraine and, the usual, suspects when it comes to the economy that is suffering? Isn't 1 billion not too much? And if he's asking for a cyber security, and all of these things that he wants to build by himself for his office in that building, and the idea is that why don't you share with other people, interministerial or collaborative usage? Is that not fair to ask of him? Prof's line is frozen. I wish I had him immediately so he responds quickly, then I get back to the studio. Professor PJ, okay. Yes, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, the MP for Northtown, just joined us, ranking member Foreign Affairs Committee. Been on some campaigns for a while now, particularly checking the spending at the presidency from day one. That's been his pet subject. Now, how the president flies on,
luxury jet.
It says luxury jets is also an issue. And now he's beginning to also look at what he calls the unapproved spending for the Cathedral. Interestingly, when he raises the issue, I see a certain propaganda that is the approach that is being taken. Because he's raising accountability, say, oh, you don't want a cathedral to be built. You are not a Christian. Come on. Yes.
It's not about
all right. So if you may take off from where I ask Prof, and when he comes back, he can also respond to that. We're in difficult times. Should we be dedicating $1 billion to build new structures like intelligence stuff when you can share, despite what we understand are the suspicions that for an OSP, it's good to have them independent staff so that they don't share with the others whilst they are dealing with somebody. Then somebody in another office gets to know and they may give a tip off. And we know that there are people in security agencies that are compromised. And it's been said, very clear example, that but for compromise, the former head of the PPA could not have lodged all those monies, 40 million plus within 1 year, when his bank account had less than 40,000, and then within 3 years, he has set up a company. He has set up companies within only 3 months to give them contracts and managed to mobilize as much as 40 million plus into their accounts. And it looks like there are people who didn't help. The OSP wants to avoid all those things, but we don't have money.
Look, Samson, and good morning to you, to Honorable Penka, the panel, and our distinguished listeners and viewers across the globe. Only this week, Samson, I was invited to the Imani second Fiscal Recklessness Index report launch. And I want to commend them and commend Oxfam for financing the project. If you were in the hall at Tang Palace and you listened to the presentation, you saw the numbers, how much we are losing, you will be more supportive of the efforts of the Office of Special Prosecutor. This country is losing too much to corruption. The hemorrhage is just too much. Let me just read this extract from the Imani Fiscal Recklessness Report. It says, over the period from 2015 to 2020, a total of 13.9 billion cedis in financial irregularities, covering stores, procurement, cash, tax, payroll, rent, and contract irregularities were recorded. Cumulatively, the total financial irregularities represent about 3.64% of 2020 GDP and an average of 0.52% of yearly GDP over the analysis period. The highest financial irregularities occurred in 2018, 5.2 billion cedis, representing more than a third of the overall financial irregularities of the MDAs and double the average financial irregularities of MDAs. 13.9 billion. That's more than twice what is projected to be raised from e-levy. It's more than double what has been spent on free SHS so far. So if the Office of Special Prosecutor is asking for resources, we should. We are losing too much. And you see, I've been looking at public financial management.
How many billions?
13.9 billion.
He needs just 1 billion.
Yes. So if we just plug the loopholes, and you see, this is how we stop things like this. And you see, if you look at the state of this economy, only this week, the CFR Sovereign Risk Assessment categorized Ghana within the high risk of debt default category, with countries like Argentina, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and that they are worried that we may not be able to pay our debt. So the economy already is in a precarious situation. The little we are generating, if we can even call it little, is going into personal pockets. We are losing it to corruption. So we must be committed at blocking the loopholes. And you see something, I've been looking at the numbers and what we do and where our priorities are. You know, another pet subject of mine is the Office of the President in terms of the staffing. I've been seeking compliance of the Presidential Office Act 1993, Act 463. It takes a lot of hassle, but eventually the President will submit the report. The latest one submitted to Parliament under the hand of the President, which was laid only last week. We are able to appoint all kinds of amorphous, positions. A church relations manager, a diaspora church mobilization officer, overseer of the National Cathedral. We have, if you come to page 24 of this report, we have a youth ambassador for diaspora affairs, even though we have embassies, more than 60 embassies across the length and breadth of this world. And the fiscal implication of this, the financial burden, I have here the budget of 2020 and 2021. If you compare wages and salaries for 2020 at the Office of Government Machinery, it was 136.2 million. I'm reading from page 234 of the 2020 budget, Appendix 7, MDA staff establishment and costs. So, Office of Government Machinery, 136.2 million Ghana cedis. Due to all of these amorphous appointments in 2021, it has shot up to 823,880,668. So from 136 to 823. So anybody should tell me that we can't find money for the Office of the Special Prosecutor. This is an increase of 508%.
Is it not the case that this amount includes the NAPCO and the rest because they come under the presidency?
It was the same in 2020.
Okay.
But even that it does not include, because if you look at Appendix 6, it's a different Appendix 6 the cost of government flagship programs. You have NAPCO, they are counted separately.
Okay.
They are 672 million. So that's a whole different arrangement. So
no, but how is that explained from 120 to 800, 130 to 820?
Yeah, I've been asking questions, and fortunately the Speaker of Parliament has referred this report to the Finance Committee. And you see, it keeps going up. So the kinds of things we find money for when you go through government finances, and we'll be coming to other matters.
What did you mention? The overseer of Cathedral,
overseer of the National Cathedral,
church relations, and then diaspora church something.
Yes.
Okay.
Are you aware that I thought that Eugene Ahin was the only communications director? I go through this list and I see that apparently we have 3 other communication directors. Frank J. Chum, Director of Communications. Awudu Moro Kabori, Director of Communications. Alexander Jedu. No, it's Ali Adams, Director of Communications. Then we have 5 Deputy Director of Communications. Maxwell Asante, Kofi Bahai Jepon, Taminu Ahassan, Yusuf Rohila Khomeini, Kofi Christopher Atiso. Then we have 6 technical assistants for communications over here, technical communications assistants, 6 of them. On top of this, we have a communication consultant, Mr. Kweku Sechiado. You can't take his expertise away from him. But on top of him also, you have the Honorable Oboshisai Kofi, who I have enormous respect for, who is also here as communications advisor, presidential advisor on media, who also then has a technical director to the advisor to the president. I mean, it's duplications, replications, and all of that. So I will not take excuses.
This is how to take care of the boys, the party people. Is
well,
that what
yeah, it appears so. So this is 995 in all.
Okay.
Political appointees are 337.
How do you relate that to the OSP's office needing retooling and all that?
When the OSP is asking for a board, it's asking for financial clearance from the Ministry of Finance to recruit. Why is it not being supported? Why are those approvals not coming? He has not been able to employ all the people he needs in the office. And Parliament, we have been raising this consistently. Only last week, the Honorable Bernard Ahiafo, who ranks on the committee, has been calling on government to meet its obligations. Even we cut what they really need. We cut it by more than 70%. And even that, they don't get it. So you see, we are either committed to fighting corruption or not. So I am saying that I don't buy the excuses about tough financial times and all of that, because we are finding money for all of this. Church relations manager, church mobilization officer of the diaspora. I don't know when God called Ghana to mobilize all the churches in the diaspora. And it's coming at huge fiscal burden. And then you juxtapose that with what Imani is reporting, how much we are losing. Remember the Auditor General's report, 2020, from 2016 to 2020, how much we lost? Over 12 billion cedis. So you see, you should have this discussion within the context of how much we are losing. If you consider how much we are losing and what that money can do.
I'm hoping that the OSP could pluck a quarter or half of this.
Even just a quarter. Even just a quarter, we'll be able to probably solve our flooding challenges.
Professor PJ, would you say that the OSPs, he's not back? Okay, so let me ask this to Samuel Kujota Black. Would you say this is the fear that when the OSP gets what it wants, that is the infrastructure that it is asking for, building a cybersecurity and forensic lab, among others, from where we understand, the OSP, what it asks for the 1 billion is only for recurrent expenditure. And it needs, if you like, servers to monitor transactions at the Bank of Ghana, for example. Do you think that it will be deliberate to stop them from wanting to monitor transactions at the Bank of Ghana, at the ports? You know, that if they are doing all of these things, it may not help those, you know, because they will see how money is moving. And we have used the Ejeni Mboateng example, where money is hitting accounts that I'm a lawyer, I've defended people, I've gone to court to ask the court to unfreeze accounts. and you ask how much money came into it. Just small amount of money in dollars. But because this ordinary person doesn't have a history of such an amount coming into the account, they flag it. So you ask the question, how was it possible that a man with less than 40,000 accumulates in excess of 40 million?
Yeah, 41 million.
Yes. In 3 years, setting up companies in 3 months, and you're all getting all the contracts, and this is not flagged. From what we know, they were flagged by the bank officials, but it appears those who were supposed to hold them in check didn't do anything. So is there a suspicion that if the OSP comes in, it can track all of these things and stop it? So that's why it's not being helped?
Samson, I mean, this should be obvious. You see, let's be honest around this table. We all know that corruption has its beneficiaries, and corruption has.
And I meant to say non-recurrent expenditure,
yes,
and I said recurrent, not recurrent. Yeah.
And corruption has people in high places who aid it because they benefit from it. And corruption, as we know, is very sophisticated crime. And those who benefit from it also put in place systems. You see, as we are trying to, create an OSP, and the OSP wants to put in place some systems and all of that, those who benefit from corruption are seeking to go ahead. And they are always a step ahead, unless there is the political will and there is the genuine commitment to fight the rot and to punish those who must be punished. So you see, it's a matter of leadership. It's a matter of priority. It is a matter of meaning what we say. When we say that we'll protect the public purse, when we say that we will make corruption a high risk, if you were making something high risk, then let's see the results. Let's see the deterrence.
Right.
And that's what
having heard across the board, Panka, what would you say? That the president may have lost the priority that initially he put on the OSP. The president is superintending, changing our laws to make corruption a high risk, even though we know that was already there. But you needed to do, and he has done all of these things. Why will he not do the things the OSP needs?
Yeah, that's why I have very serious reservations at the frightening levels of conclusions that are being drawn across the table. And I say so because, you see, he is a member of parliament. I was with him in parliament. And I can assure you that not in the history of this country have we had any legislation to fight corruption than this government. Not in the history of this country.
But legislation is not enough. That's
and you see, and it is for the institutions to carry out these things effectively, to implement the laws effectively for results. OSP is one. And we had the Witness Protection Act. We had the Right to Information Act. All these. And then the Governance Act. All these under the government of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. These are all meant to deepen governance and fight corruption. Now it is for those institutions and the personalities there to carry out their mandate as required by law to fight corruption. No one individual sitting there as president can fight corruption without institutional fight against the system. But there is this perception or this argument that is being canvassed every day, which I met a colleague of mine at another station, and I drew his attention to something. This figure that is being bandied around, which frightened you, and you almost froze under your feet, 13 billion that he mentioned. I've discussed this issue at length with one of his colleagues on another platform. You see, most of these things, the information they got were from the Auditor General's report over the period. And mind you, financial irregularities identified by the Auditor General does not equate to corruption. I think we have to be very careful. Otherwise, we will get it wrong. Now, the Auditor General they categorize all those irregularities. Some of them are based on, for example, that some money was set aside to purchase maybe air conditioners. It didn't happen. The money was used to purchase maybe laptops. That's an irregularity. But it's not corruption. So all those things are lumped to get this 13 billion. But the perception people are canvassing out there is as though that 13 billion is money that was stolen.
Okay, I think that's a good
we have to clarify this and be very careful. Otherwise, we will think that that 13 billion was money that a group of people stole.
People are justified in questioning. People are justified in questioning the president or the government's priority to the OSP. Are they not?
We're going there. As I indicated at the beginning, when you gave me the opportunity to argue on this matter or make my presentation, I stated to you that this is a man who made a promise. He came into office, carried through, sent it to parliament. It was passed into law. He allocated an office to the OSP. It wasn't sufficient. A state institution puts up a magnificent edifice. The president himself intervenes and says, OSP, go and occupy that place because you are a priority institution.
It's actually a 10-story building.
Yes. So, you see, we may say that it is not enough, but to say that nothing has been done would be wrong. And I have stated that the commitment in terms of legislation and in terms of the physical infrastructure and the support to the OSP. Look, let me give you an example. I was Deputy Attorney General for 4 years. Sam, even the Attorney General, that office, very huge office with other allied agencies and etc. Our budget is sometimes even less than what the special prosecutor is asking for. The Attorney General with 10 regional...
The special prosecutor... The special prosecutor, Office of Special Prosecutor is a new arrangement.
Yes, but
it will need more than you need.
I agree.
To set it up.
I agree. I've said that I agree. But I'm saying that the Attorney General's office, which has 16 offices across the country, okay, with staff strength of running over 1,000, etc., and other things that they need to actually fight corruption also and fight crime and graft, we get less than this amount released to us.
6 months into the year.
No.
6 months into the year. Attorney General, haven't you received your budget or some of it? The 6 million that has been released by the Finance Ministry, it's not yet, with the OSP.
No,
that's not good enough.
You see, the point is this. Even at the beginning, the figures keep changing, eh? And that's even what, at the beginning, it was an admission on this table by your good self that it was 10 million.
Yes.
And then
I said our
information
about how much the Finance Ministry has released is 10 million. That's what I had said earlier.
Generally.
And I came to now say with emphatically, that the amount that has been released is actually 6 million, but that amount has actually, as we speak, not hit the account yet.
I have indicated to you
how
that
it's supposed to work.
You see, we have hundreds of state institutions across the country, all needing funding and competing for funding. The OSP is a priority, no doubt about it. But when you are running a system where you are constrained financially to be able to satisfy all, the little that you have, you squeeze it in a manner that you are able to meet them in a certain way for them to be able to effectively function and carry out their mandate as required by law.
Okay.
That's what I have stated. Look, I'm just giving you, let me digress a little. The Office of Attorney General.
We have very little time. I need to go to Kujaa PJ for the final comments, and then we'll go to a break and return.
Samson, I have said, and I want to state again, that my former colleague, who is now the boss of the Aegis department, is a great personality. Look, within a space of 1.5 years, through his lobbying and his relationship with government, the way he's been able to work, he's managed to procure enough vehicles for all regional offices of the Office of Attorney General.
And we saw that.
Yes, he did. And then the law office, which has been a dream. Go and see how beautifully it is coming up.
The special prosecutor should not be going around begging for funding.
If we have, look,
he should not be doing that. The special prosecutor should not be doing that.
Absolutely.
The special prosecutor is not a party person.
Yes, exactly. I know. Exactly. I know he is an independent person who is supposed to carry out his mandate in compliance with the Act. But and that's the reason actually for the creation of that office, as you know, because it was intelligently carved out of Article 88 in order to satisfy that.
All right.
But I just want to plead that when we are making general statements such as the 13 billion issue, we shouldn't create the impression that it's stolen money.
Okay, thank you very much. Professor PJ, the question I was asking earlier when we lost you was whether you thought that in the circumstances that we find ourselves about COVID, about Ukraine and the rest of them, the 1 billion that it needs for the things it needs to do cyber security installations, get monitors so that it can also equally monitor, the Bank of Ghana, monitor the ports, so that when money is coming in, he knows who must explain what you are getting and the rest of them. In this time, should he not be agreeing to just join these institutions that have them, rather than wanting an independent one?
Yes, in a way we can say so, because as I already indicated, corruption is interconnected with some other crimes and other activities, whether licit or illicit. So corruption is connected to, for example, money laundering. It is connected to racketeering, fraud, and 419 activities, cybercrime, and so on. And so one can say that they can join hands and work together. But I think that the second option is preferable, that the OSP is set up as an independent body, and it has its own lab and it has its own investigations and so on, while still networking with financial and intelligence center and so on, because of the fact that their works are connected, working with EOCO and the rest. But it has to have that independence. And if it also should link up with or rely on EOCO and the rest, they already have their own challenges and stumbling blocks and inefficiencies. And so it is going to add to that inefficiency and make the office of the OSP not very effective in performing its mandate. So if it has its own money, it can do better. And I think that in spite of COVID and the challenges we are facing, the office is a sort of investment, actually, because it's going to do two main things. One, it is preventing corruption and saving us money. And two, it is helping to reclaim money that have been stolen from the coffers of the country, so that we can get back a lot of the money that the PAC every year come out and say that we lost so much and there's corruption here, there's graft there, and so on. So if we put money into OSP, it is not money being wasted. And I think that is, in terms of priority, that is where the government should pay attention to. And that will certainly be a game changer in how we amass the fortunes of this country. Because corruption is pervasive, it has become pervasive, and it is spreading its tentacles day in and day out. And so if the office is working effectively, it can, in the end, deal with corruption and also deal with a governance system that we have, because people are infiltrating government. And governance is becoming a hybrid form of governance, with clientelism and so on coming into play. And in the end, we are moving towards a failed state situation, or what is happening in South Africa. We call it
state capture.
What's the word?
State capture.
State capture.
State capture. That's the word. Yeah. So and so we need to be careful about it, because that is unfortunately the direction we are heading to if we don't tackle corruption very seriously.
All right. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Kojo Appiah-Chia. We will take a break here, and when we return, we will see how we quickly can deal with the question of Parliament's concern about unapproved monies being spent on the National Cathedral, and then see how we can also, as it were, help in the fight between the IGP and the British High Commissioner to Ghana, and what the comments will be about the bizarre request for a demonstration with private armed security, so to speak. A couple of comments. Ken says that, Penka, if you are saying that there is money used to purchase something else rather than what is originally meant for, is not corruption, you must ask yourself, what is the motivation for purchasing another thing rather than what the money was originally used, was originally earmarked for? So this is substantially has a relationship with corruption. So we should pay attention to that. Kojo says that clearly it's not correct that the president is in charge of appointing the members of the board. All the institutions are nominating institutions, and that is clear in section 5. Everyone is nominated. Even the OSP is a rep. When the president says free HSS is major priority, he has moved heaven and earth to pursue it. So why has he taken this approach about corruption? When he says that the cathedral is a priority among priorities, he's advancing far in excess, more than double what he's giving to the OSP. How do you explain that? We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. And my guest in the studio, Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa. He is MP, North Tongue, and ranking member, Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament. Joseph Dindiok Pemka is former Deputy Attorney General and Minister of Justice. On the Zoom is Professor Appiah Tia, School of Law, University of Ghana. Now, let's go to church. The issue of the National Cathedral has come up again. The last time I spoke about it, I decided that I wouldn't speak about it again. So personally, I've not made any comments about the cathedral anymore because you are represented as not Christian even when you ask factual questions. At the start of the cathedral issue, I broke the matter of the place that is being used for the building here on Newsfile on my take, because judges had been giving a 24-hour notice to move from their residence. There were a lot of judges' residents there, about 12 bungalows there. And some of the judges were not happy. So, of course, they won't go and tell the government about it. It's we journalists that they will talk to. So I was spoken to. And one judge particularly protested in a manner that compelled the judicial service to formally write asking them to leave the premises. And that too was with such short notice. So I wrote about it and asked why we could not find another location rather than using that place. And then hell broke loose. A lot of hypocrisy about you being against the building of a national cathedral, being a Christian. Muslims have one and you are not interested in Christians having one. Then the chieftaincy minister came and said the buildings there are dilapidated and there was a plan to remove them and replace them with new ones. I tell you what, the reason I said you can't build a cathedral on the foundation of lies. And this is the statement I made, and I haven't spoken about this matter ever again. Because that was such a big lie. There were many buildings there, and I'm going to show you some of the buildings. My production team will show you some of the buildings now. Many buildings there, like what you have in your shot. They were very new. You can see this. This was actually not completed yet. They were still being built. 6-bedroom buildings. Very, very good. And they had not actually finished paying for some of them. So when the chieftaincy minister came, oh, they are dilapidated, and the government people came, dilapidated buildings, we are removing them so that we will replace the judges, get a new one for them. I said that was a lie from the pit of hell. These pictures, these are buildings that were there. And then you had Peter Amawu also coming to say, oh, dilapidated building, we are removing them, and government is not involved. Government is not going to spend a dime. All we are going to do is to pay for the relocation of the judges. We are finding them a new place. And this place had the passport office. It has several other installations there that needed to be broken. and some at a very expensive cost. So my question was, must you use just that land? Can't you find another one? Now, we know that beyond paying for the relocation of the judges, initially for them to live in rented apartments, and then the new place completed for them to go in, that new place too was being built by state money. The minister came to say that they were going to provide seed money. Eventually, it was no longer the fact that government was not paying for it. They were going to provide seed money and land and facilitation. Now it is turning out that we are spending a lot more from the budget, from taxpayers' money than may have been planned. But that is not the issue. The issue is Parliament, some members of Parliament are not happy because they believe that they are not involved. Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa is here. He started all of this. So what is the issue with the cathedral?
Well, Samson, let me begin by stating emphatically that I am still a Christian. I was vice president of the Scripture Union in Presec and head of the evangelical team. We did a lot of dumb preaching and preaching in the buses. That's where
my producer was an SU president. Yes. I was an SU president.
Great, fantastic. and that's where I got the nickname Son of Man.
Oh, okay.
And it became my pen name even when I got to Commonwealth Hall at the University of Ghana. I wrote under the pen name Son of Man.
So you want me to tell you that I was NUSG president in my secondary school?
Good. So they attempt to portray some of us as anti-Christian, as if we are probably preparing the way for the Antichrist will not wash. Now, this is our fundamental point, Samson. If there is any project that should be approached with a lot of holiness, sincerity, purity, lawfulness, it should be this project. The National Cathedral project, where we will all go and confess our sins and pray to the Almighty to bless us, must not be a project that we subject to the usual shenanigans, where there is lawlessness, the violation of constitutional provisions, breaching the procurement law, and all of that. Not the National Cathedral project. If not, when we go there, God will not even entertain us. So that point must be made. Now, Article 178 of the 1992 Constitution is very clear. And as members of Parliament, that is our mandate. It says that no monies shall be withdrawn from the consolidated fund, except A, to meet expenditure that is charged on that fund by this Constitution or by an act of Parliament, or B, where the issue of those monies has been authorized by an appropriation act or by a supplementary estimate approved by resolution of Parliament passed for the purpose. So, when we intercepted this letter dated 31st March, signed by the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, Minister for Finance, authorizing the Comptroller and Accountant General to release 25 million Ghana cedis as additional seed money. When you read the second paragraph, additional seed money. We said, hey, what is going on here? We are in Parliament, cloaked with authority to approve expenditure. Nobody can take money out of the consolidated fund without parliamentary approval. So what is happening here? We go through all the budgets, and I've brought here all President Akufo-Addo's budgets from 2017 to 2022. There is not a single line item for the National Cathedral. Indeed, if you go through this budget, all the budgets you have Appendix 6, which relates to government's flagship programs. You heard the president say that this cathedral project is his priority of priorities, to quote him verbatim.
Yeah.
His priority projects are listed in Appendix 6. If you take, this is the 2022 budget, page 264. The priority of priorities. You don't have National Cathedral here. You have Maslock 50 million. You have
it's okay, don't mention them.
All of them. So you go through all the budgets, the flagship programs are here. There is no national cathedral. Then, Samson, yesterday, we also put out more information. We have a stash of documentation that we have intercepted from the office of the president, and we are serializing them. Yesterday, we put out the second in the series. Next week, we'll continue. A payment of 32,070,103 Ghana cedis and 2 pesos to Sir David Ajayi and Associates. And the status paid. It's been paid in full. Transaction details, payment of consultancy services on new bids opening and interviewing of contractors rendered on the National Cathedral project. The GIFMIS account code is 2210801. So if you add this 32 million to the 25 million Kenufriata letter, we are talking in the region of 57 million Ghana cedis that has been released. Now, a little background is important, Samson. When this project started, it was presented as the president's personal pledge to God that if you help me win this election, I will build a cathedral to say thank you in your honor, to glorify you. Noble pledge. We all make pledges. God help me achieve this milestone. So it was presented as a private initiative. So they set up a private board. That is why it didn't come to Parliament for approval. When government was setting up a public board of trustees for COVID funds to collect, donations from the general public, corporate Ghana, they came to Parliament. We approved it. But this one didn't come to Parliament because we understood that it's private. It's none of our business in terms of public finances. So they will just mobilize all of us as Christians and we will all contribute to the fund. And indeed, on the 27th of August, 2018, I have here from your sister station online, Adum Online, government not using taxpayers' money to build National Cathedral. Immediate past General Secretary of the Christian Council of Ghana, Reverend Dr. Kwabena Opuni Frimpong, says government will not pay for the yet-to-be-built National Cathedral. Speaking on Asempa FM's Ekosi Sen show on Monday, Dr. Opuni Frimpong said President Akufo-Addo would only facilitate the acquisition of land for the project, but would not finance it as being speculated in the public domain. So we're all under this impression. Then came 15th November 2018. Yes, I'm right. 15th November 2018. I hold in my hands the budget speech for the 2019 financial statement and budget of the government of Ghana.
That's right.
Ken Ofori-Atta then announces quite a major shift. At paragraph 157, he says, and I quote, Mr. Speaker, the president is determined that the building of the National Cathedral will not put undue financial burdens on the state. He has therefore proposed a partnership between the state and the Ghanaian Christian community, both at home and the diaspora. The formal launch of this national fundraising campaign is slated for December 28, 2018 in Ghana and February 2019 in the United States. So this is the first time we're here in Parliament that, the president has made a new proposal that it will now be a partnership. So in the debate of the 2019 budget statement, I have here an extra from Dr. Anyenini's debate. Dr. Anyenini, who is a ranking on constitutional and legal, said that it is important that a line item is provided. You can't just say that you are making a proposal and you leave it at that it will be unconstitutional. And that we want to know how much is in that partnership. What does it entail? What percentage? Is it 20%, 30%, 40%? So we will know in line with Article 178 and then grant approval. We didn't get any response. So we had been under the impression that, the proposal for partnership for seed capital from state coffers will be brought to the House later, only to discover these releases in flagrant violation of Article 178 of the Constitution. Then you see,
I heard you and John Kuma, the Deputy Finance Minister, on Top Story.
Yes.
He said, once Ken Ofori-Atta mentioned this in the budget, that's enough. You don't need any approvals. It doesn't matter that he didn't state any money that was to be taken. and so you are crying, like you said, you are crying wolf.
No.
And that you don't want the president to build a cathedral to glorify God.
John Kumar is wrong. He knows he is wrong. You are Deputy Minister for Finance. Article 179 of the Constitution, before any government entity will spend, there has to be approval. And that approval must be contained in the Appropriation Act. I hold in my hands the Appropriation Act of 2021 and 2022. And indeed, I have brought all the Appropriation Acts. Nowhere. And you see, it's a detailed act which provides line by line a breakdown. What, even with compensation, how many staff are you going to pay? Goods and services, what are you going to use it for? Capex, what will you use it for? In the Appropriation Act, you don't find any line item. That is why, since we intercepted this letter and put it out, we've been asking them, okay, show us where in the budget and how much. This so-called seed capital and partnership, what is the specific figure? Because that's not how public financial management works.
In the payment to the designer, yes. Architectural designer, that's David Ajayi. Yes. David Ajayi. You said, and we have seen the document.
32 million. Yes.
32 million. That may fall under what Kinoforiata said. He said, Mr. Speaker, the state is facilitating this process by providing the land, the secretariat, and the seed money for the notes, preparatory phase. So the design and things can be part of the preparatory stage. Yeah. Is it your suggestion that 35 million is too much, or what? Or just that you have not approved it?
No, a number of concerns. One, you should have brought it to Parliament for approval in line with Article 178 of the Constitution. That was not done. Then two, once you are going to procure the services of a company, David Ajayi and Associates, you must follow the procurement law. There are procurement laws in this country. Our checks indicate that has not been followed. They breached the procurement law. And you see, it is interesting that only a few weeks ago, I came across this publication, David Ajayi inducted Architects Register, graphic online, April 26, 2022. An internationally acclaimed Ghanaian British architect, Sir David Ajayi, and we are all proud of his achievements. He makes Africans proud in the diaspora. So I don't take anything away from his profession. Says, has been inducted into the standing register of the Architects Registration Council, ARC. The induction ceremony took place in Accra last Sunday after he was registered as an architect by the council to enable him to practice in the country as mandated by law. 2022.
Yeah, this issue had come up earlier when he was the one to do the job.
And yet, we were paying him, 2021, we paid him 32 million. And we are paying him for Agenda 111, for the trade fair and other things.
I mean, Agenda 111, we have land issues, we still have not resolved them. We have money issues, we still haven't resolved them yet.
Why can't we do things right? I mean, and for Christ's sake, this is the temple of God where we are going to pray. It should be squeaky clean. It should be holy. As Paul told the Philippians, whatever is of good report, what is pure, what is moral. I mean, that is what we should, that is what this project should epitomize. Then you see, the priority question is also very important and is one of the major concerns we have. Look, Samson, this is a time that government is struggling to meet its obligations. As we speak, textbooks have not been provided for 3 good years. National service personnel are owed. NAPCO trainees have not been paid for more than 7 months. Look, he has been a rural MP before. We go to the constituency, you receive petitions. They are driving out these young people from their rental accommodation. So at Christmas, you recall that I had to call my NAPCO workers and then give them a package for Christmas. Recently, the national service personnel, when I saw they applied, some of them posted from the north, from Takra, they have Fasini, far places. And they are precarious situation. I had to donate my 2 months, salary to them. So we see what they go through. And government is saying, bear with us, we don't have money. Health insurance is owed, about 2 billion cedis. You owe District Assembly Common Fund. You owe Get Fund. I mean, unemployment is at an all-time high by the population and housing census, 13.4%. So we are facing all these challenges. Look at flooding. It rains. I mean, if you look at World Bank World Nations data in Africa, Ghana is not amongst the top 3 high rainfall countries. We are nowhere near Sierra Leone, Equatorial Guinea, and Liberia. And yet, anytime it rains, it gets flooded. We need an engineering solution to solve this problem. And this is what we say we will do at this time, something at this time. And you see, the other documentation we are reviewing.
You forget something. The president said this is a priority of priorities.
Priority of priorities. Sometimes
you insist that it is personal and you shouldn't bring the state in the way he has done it.
It started as personal, but if you want to bring the state, do it frontally. You understand? This is about a project for the good Lord. So be transparent about it. Let's have a national debate if we should really come on board and how much, what should be the percentage. And then we come through Parliament because it's public funds. You cannot take out money from the consolidated fund.
Anytime you have raised queries like you are doing now about lack of compliance with constitutional provisions and the rest of them, and I won't say what it is not. The propaganda is that, Samuel Kujeto, NDC doesn't support. Church people, have you heard? NDC doesn't want the cathedral.
Not at all. I mean, you see, you don't even want to talk about personal donations that we have all made through our churches and all of that. You see, the National Cathedral project we haven't condemned the project. We haven't said that it's not a great idea. Indeed, I have even said in Parliament that if you look at page 251 of the 2021 budget, many Ghanaians do not know that if you come to Appendix 10C, we also have another project, construction of new international conference center. We are going to raise down the conference center, which is just next to this National Cathedral, at 166 million euros. I have said in Parliament that can't we rather resources for that, just combine it and have one project. We've all come up with good ideas on how this will work. So you see, we are not against the project, but we are saying that be truthful.
So what should happen in this? What should this happen in this situation?
So we have
where Parliament, which the Constitution says is the only one that can approve expenditure, has not, okayed any expenditure, and you have seen that a total of 57 million of the taxpayers' money has gone into it.
But it's
what are you going to do?
So we have filed 3 urgent questions. At least we want to hear him. Let's hear the finance minister. But we have another plan. We think that, look, this should be punished. It is most likely that after the ministerial question time, we'll move into vote of censure. At least we have the numbers to start. It's secret votes, so who knows? The spirit may lead others to punish the finance minister because these are grave offenses.
Are you not scared? Are you not as afraid? And let me say this once again as bluntly as I can. Are you not afraid? You are sitting on a platform that you can say mostly middle class, working people, educated people are watching and listening, so they can associate with what you're saying, that you're only asking for accountability and transparency and legally compliant processes. You are not saying you are against Cathedral. But when you hear, for example, when you and John Kuma were on Top Story, he will abandon these questions and go on the moral and religious tangent and say, oh, this is a place to worship God. Why are you against it? Are you not afraid that they will use this against you in your campaign, particularly for the people who are vulnerable and
Indeed, even within our own party, a lot of people have called me and said, this matter, we understand you, we know they've broken the law, but can't you drop it? You see, 71% of the population are Christians or even more, and that it can affect our electoral fortunes. I said, no. You see, let's do what is right. The good Lord will not be happy with us when we see such blatant wrongdoing and we don't speak up. We want the cathedral eventually built on the altar of purity and holiness, so that when we go there and pray, our prayers will go beyond Chebi and get to the high heavens.
Yes.
So you see, let me just conclude by saying that the fantastic point you made at the beginning about how much has gone in so far, people must put that in context. So this 57 million we have spent so far, which we have exposed, is nowhere near the total sums, taxpayers' money that has been spent. Let me reveal on your platform for the first time that the Malian ambassador's residence was pulled down as well. And government entered into an agreement with the Malian government to replace. So at our cost, they are buying land for them at airport residential.
Oh, there were several other places there, very serious installations that government was going to pay in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yes. So that's why one of our three urgent questions is how much so far, the total amount that we have spent. Look, it will blow the minds of people. So now the Malians are waiting for us to erect a new ambassador's residence for them. Passport office, we spent 10 million cedis relocating the passport office to where it is now near the Ghana
and how much
Institute
we relocated
of
the judges to?
Yes.
First of all, the rental accommodation we did, and then the new buildings.
The new buildings opposite GIS, which we are constructing for them. So we are talking about hundreds of millions of Ghana cedis, and next week we will be revealing more. So you see,
so that at least through this process, we will know exactly how much the state has been committed, the taxpayers' money has been committed. All right. Okay, thank you. Kwenka, it doesn't look this good. It doesn't look that good, does it?
Once again, thank you very much. Samson, you rightly read something, and he also read it. You see, when the budget is submitted to Parliament, and there are a need for corrections to be done before it is passed, those things are done. The debates are made by the various parties. The various persons actually debate on the budget, raise issues of law, those that are in conflict with certain laws and etc. After that, you have a revised appropriation, and then the act is then passed. Now, that paragraph that both of you have actually read, which mandates that government was going to commit itself to making a contribution to the construction of a cathedral. The budget was approved
preparatory phase.
The budget was approved with the inclusion of that paragraph. It wasn't taken out. So when you have approved the budget with the inclusion of that paragraph, which has not been taken out, what is the implication? Are you not mandating the finance ministry to spend, or the government to spend on the project without preparatory stage? I'm getting there. I'll draw your attention to something. You see?
Okay.
In every budget, there is an allocation to the office of the president, correct?
Yes.
And sometimes, quite huge, it is allocated to the office of the president. So this releases that you are talking about, office of the president, it doesn't go beyond the budget that is allocated to the office of the president. And so the finance ministry can just conveniently say that as part of what we allocated to office of the president, 25 million of it has been sent to the National Cathedral, which you have approved. You understand the rationale that I'm talking about? It may not be project specific, as we are talking about, but there are allocations that have been made to the office of the president. General allocations that have been made to the office of the president without
specific items.
No, you see,
I have the appropriation act here. What specific items? Compensation, CAPEX, goods and services. It's a breakdown.
Then how come on the number of occasions you've spoken about expenses that have been incurred by the presidency and they are profligate and all that, and the budget to the presidency is huge? How come? You've raised that a number of times. So you see, what I'm talking about is that we should be very careful. Otherwise,
as an MP, former MP, as someone who has also come to the place of important office such as the Attorney General, are you happy that your country is committed, your money has been committed to a project, and you don't know how much is involved?
No, the point about how much is involved will be answered if the minister goes to Parliament. That is not within my domain.
Shouldn't it
is when the minister goes to Parliament, that is
after spending.
You see, the MPs are agents of accountability. The minister will have to go there and answer those questions and give us details.
He must spend before he goes to them.
No. First of all, if it is project specific, you put it in the budget and get approval and spend. But remember that we have expenses that may not necessarily be in the budget, but have been approved for the office of the president in an amorphous manner, in such a way that an amount of money could be taken from such an allocation to a particular project that was not specifically mentioned before approval was granted. And that's why I'm saying that it is too hasty. It is too hasty to run.
Will you manage your home, not a company, like that?
No, Samson. You see, for example, if I decide that I have 5,000 cedis for miscellaneous in my house. Okay, I have 5,000. I've done all the allocations.
But let's take it this way: that you have a project you describe as priority of priorities, and yet you must look for miscellaneous to spend on it.
See, you haven't,
and the money you are spending on it is not your money. It's not your pocket money. Even though it's your personal pledge that you have made to God, it's not your personal money. You are taking someone's money and you say, let me spend it before I come and tell you how much I have spent ask for your approval.
If you listen to me and I land, you will understand me. The point I am making
is difficult to understand where you're coming from.
When you put your questions before the minister and he comes to provide answers, at that stage, you will have every justification to query whatever answers he would have provided. Until he has provided you with answers that are unsatisfactory for you to query, he could come and provide you with answers that are satisfactory and compliant with the law, because he is the one superintending over our resources.
Yes, but there must be an appropriation.
You have not yet gotten there, and you run into conclusion, you will be wrong.
Again, referring to you as someone who has come to the important place of the Attorney General, that your constitution speaks about how spending must be done. You are saying that the government or finance minister is allowed to appropriate before he goes to them to tell them about
it. Then you've not listened to me. Maybe you
so convince me. I can't understand.
I also don't understand. I have stated that in every budgetary allocation, okay, you have specific allocations to various sectors and facets. But it doesn't tie you to the fact that we have areas for miscellaneous, which will give you the discretion to spend, but you will then eventually account. What is the purpose of miscellaneous? Why do we put it in budgets? We put it in budgets to make allocations so that other eventualities that come up, we will spend and later account.
So your explanation is that your explanation is that, let's help our listeners. Let's help our viewers. Your explanation is that 57 million has been spent. We know there's far more than that will be spent. If you talk about all the buildings that were pulled down, all the new lands that are going to be found, all the new buildings that are going to be put up there. You are saying that 57 million, which is described as additional spending, is miscellaneous.
What I'm saying is that I'm sure you probably have not allowed me to make my point.
No. If you can explain this, that the money spent is miscellaneous.
What I'm saying is that you see, if the particular amount of money you have spent is not captured specifically in the budget, okay, as he has rightly pointed out, you can invoke the particular constitutional injunction that mandates you to do so for accountability purposes.
Okay.
I am all out for that. But what I'm saying is that government can, as part of the allocations made for miscellaneous, if it indeed is up to that particular amount that they need, spend same and come and tell you that what you allocated to me for miscellaneous has been used for this other purpose. Okay. Government can't do that.
Right. So
that's how you run government.
Let's go to Professor
I haven't finished. I haven't finished at all.
Okay.
You see, the impression is being created as though the cathedral, when constructed and it is finished and being occupied, is going to be the property of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa.
Nobody has created that impression.
I'm saying the impression is being created.
I doubt that anybody has that kind of impression.
Nobody has said
it's called National Cathedral.
Because you see, there's a misunderstanding of this issue of it was his personal pledge. There's a misunderstanding. People are misunderstanding it. And I'm saying that at the end of it...
Was it part of the campaign? Was it part of your manifesto?
Hold it. At the end of the project, when it is completed and handed over, and His Excellency Nana Addo leaves office in 2025, it will be a national project. It's not going to be for him. We should understand that.
That's a no-brainer. Nobody should think that way. At least not the viewers and listeners of this platform. To think that there is an impression that it is going to be his private property.
I'm not saying that. You see, Samson,
yes.
I'm not saying that simplicity.
Okay.
But you see, you are speaking with respect to, I mean, you mentioned something earlier, and I do appreciate that. Propaganda. Your listeners are discerning enough. I agree. But some propaganda elements will go to town and create the impression as if this is a monument that is being done in the name of a particular person. But it is a national cathedral. Later, our children will come to use it, and our children's children will come to use it.
All right. Professor PJ, maybe you understand, Penka. I don't. And those of you who are viewing, sending us messages, you can also send me a message. Maybe I have a bias over this matter. But I can tell you, there's one thing I do. Even though I have a position of some matters, I can take a view, I can take a position that doesn't get into the discussion at all. I'm just probing. So, Prof, do you understand where he's coming from as far as the spending from the national coffers towards the cathedral is concerned? Please unmute your microphone.
No, I don't. I don't understand him, and if what he's saying, I don't understand him, and if I do, I don't agree with him, because I think the rules are clear. We are working with the Constitution. The Constitution is clear in Article 178 about how we should go about our business. The way he's framing the discussion and trying to explain and justify it is part of the corruption issue we're talking about. That this amount of money has been given to the office of the presidency, and this is how he can use it, and he can decide how much this goes into this or that. Honorable Ablakwa had previously, in about a week or so, talked about some ballooning of the number of presidential staffers and giving names and titles to people in charge of religion and things like that. This is part of the problem where corruption sets in, because you have a situation where the money can be moved about in a way that you cannot account for it, or you have decided what to do with it. I think the rule is clear, and here is talking about parliamentary approval, one. Number two, the procurement issue has not been satisfied. Number three, the priority issue. And the priority issue, Dr. Kuma was making the point that it is government that sets priority. So where is the opposition coming from to challenge that? I think he got it completely wrong. It's the people's money. The government was it, and the people are represented by parliament. And the parliament includes the opposition. So they should debate the matter and refer to Article 178 to determine how the money is to be spent and approval given. That is, the rule is clear and simple, and I don't think we can try and read into that anything else. So the question then is, why is the government in such a situation or haste to build this cathedral? I don't think that's religious purpose. Most in a second, I belong to the Church of Christ. When David wanted to build a temple for the Lord, he said, the temple, I'm too big to reside in a temple. So we can all make the religious arguments to say that there is no basis for Dr. Kuma saying that as for the poor, we always have them with us. No, I don't think we can justify that, Mary Magdalene. So the point is that the government wants to build this cathedral because it wants to win a particular constituency to its side, and that is the religious bodies. So there is this attempt to infiltrate the camp of the religious bodies deeper, so that come elections, they will be able to make a case and win people to their side, because they know that Ghana is intensely religious, and the people will therefore sway in that direction. Of course, it's not only Christians that the president is trying to satisfy. He's also made inroads into the Muslim community, with regard to the Hajj and others. So it's part of building a coalition, building a constituency that can help the government to win power. That's the bottom line. Because if you're saying that this is a project that can pay for itself, what about the office of the special prosecutor? It can pay for itself. What money has gone into that? So we need to look at the question of priorities and make sure that we set our priorities right. And if we know that we cannot set it right, then it means that the matter has to go to the people through their representatives in parliament to decide that. The government is making a lot of attempts to infiltrate into a number of sectors and areas where I think we need to be wary of. We can talk about the universities where there's an attempt to bring in the public university bill and others. And so we need to make sure that at the end of the day, what is being done right. And I agree with the point that the lack of transparency about this whole thing being built on deception doesn't make the issue, the cathedral, to be a religious issue. It is politics. That is my take on this.
All right, so this is how we'll conclude on this subject. We'll go to the break and return to see briefly how we can touch on the final issue we have. But the Joy News has been doing editorials like Samson's Take every week. And Joy News has a position, so to speak. And this is the editorial that I want to share with you to finish on this discussion. Myself, like I said, from the very beginning when I broke the news about the place, and to be frank, I heard religious people, men of God, join the ministers, tell blatant lies. And I just quit after I made a statement that we should not build a cathedral on the foundation of lies. Let's hear the Joy News editorial.
I want you to imagine something for a minute. Picture a father, a man with a large family, many children. This man says he loves his family, but cannot provide for their needs. Many of his children go hungry every day. He cannot afford to take the sick ones to hospital. He has managed to send some of them to school, but can't feed them while they learn. He cannot provide a roof over their heads. When it rains, some of them get washed away. The older ones who are surviving his neglect are told to not only fend for themselves, but to send him more and more money each year to cater for the family. But while this man asks his impoverished children to tighten their belts and sacrifice for the family, he drives around in expensive cars, treats himself in the best hospitals, takes loving care of his friends, and makes no apology to his children for their back-breaking work that pays for his lavish lifestyle. Now, just as these children are at their hungriest, sickest, and most impoverished, this Father of the Year announces that he is going to donate a massive chunk of the money they have been paying into the family account to a church project. Why? Because some years ago he promised God he would do so. Tell me honestly, what would you think of such a father? President Nana Akufo-Addo is clearly a man of his word. He pledged free SHS to Ghanaians, and he has delivered. Maybe we can talk about the quality of the education the children are being subjected to later. But for today, let's just say he's delivering. Now, while he was going around the country promising us free SHS, he was also telling God that if he won the 2016 elections, he would construct a cathedral to the glory of his name. Indeed, after he won the election, he chose to follow through on his promise. President Nana Akufo-Addo made a donation of 100,000 Ghana cedis from his personal money to the National Cathedral project.
The purpose of the cathedral, as I indicated at the sword cutting, was to offer thanksgiving to the Almighty for his blessings to us as a nation, and to address a missing link in the nation's architecture by building a church for national purposes. The challenge of building Ghana's national cathedral, therefore, relates to the mobilization of our people in support of the project.
Clearly, what the president had in mind was not a 100,000 Ghana cedi cathedral. The fulfilling of his personal pledge to God would cost much more than that. And the president is a man of his word. So, without Ghanaians' permission, he demolished buildings on state grounds, including judges' homes, to make room for his massive personal debt to God to be built. Why should Ghanaians be the ones funding the president to pay a personal debt that he owes to God? But the president didn't stop at the appropriation of state land for his personal project. In Parliament, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta pledged state funding to the cathedral.
Mr. Speaker, this state and church partnership envisaged by the President to develop the National Cathedral is on course. An initiative, the 100 CDs a month club, also dubbed Kitwe Biarensa, will be launched by the trustees of the National Cathedral on August 12, 2021, to give as many Ghanaians as possible the opportunity to be part of the history to build the National Cathedral. The aim of the club is to raise 1 million Ghanaians who will give 100 CDs a month for the construction of the National Cathedral.
This week, a leaked document revealed that a donation of 25 million Ghana cedis has been approved as additional seed money. Another leaked document revealed that the architectural firm in charge of the project has already been paid 37 million Ghana cedis for this project. Now, the good book says, "For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God." We are all sinners, granted. But the same Bible says we should work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. So again, I ask, why are we abandoning our own salvation to work out Nana Akufo-Addo's? Why are we footing the bill for the president's pledge to God? Ghanaians are predominantly devout and generous Christians. Many people have actually given money to this project already, but many more have not. Some Christians have blatantly refused to donate because they object to being roped in to fund the fulfillment of the president's private pledge. They say their refusal is due to Ghana's multitude of unsolved problems. The roads are bad. Many companies have shut down due to the poor economy. People are out of work. Because we don't have enough money to build drains, Accra floods every year and people die. Due to a lack of money, hospital projects have been put on hold. Because there's no money, the state owes very vulnerable people leap stipends. These people are going without food daily. School lunch caterers are on strike. They are enraged because the government expects them to feed each child on 97 pesewas per meal. The government's excuse for this ridiculous amount is that there isn't enough money. There isn't enough money to feed our children, but we have sufficient funds to pay the president's personal debts. Please, God, speak to us. Is this really what you want? Do you really want our leaders to starve us, neglect our basic needs, and leave us to our own fate just so that you can have another cathedral? Because this is what your servant, our president, is doing. So God, today we are asking you, what would you think of the actions of our leader?
I doff my heart for the minister, whom I've had respect for all this while, to have shown such maturity and saying that, hey, look, don't escalate things. As I said earlier on, you remember, I said most of these things either are intentionally done or innocuously done, but they generate some kind of instability in some countries. Some ambassadors would have also been that intemperate. I remember we had one like that, also in the British High Commission, the one who came before John Benjamin also, who would take his pen and write directly and had a whole lot of problems with the government of the day then. So this one, the ministry has seen the need to step in and say, look, don't raise the stakes. We are here. Remember the bond that we have had with you all up to this time. And Mr. IGP too, we have taken over. So I strongly believe that what they have put in the public domain is very good. It slows down the current being generated, and it also gives room for it gives room for explanations to kill this case altogether.
The IGP has made his point very clear. I support him. He's given a powerful punch, making it very clear that you just can't come in here, throw your weight about, write things that do not concern you and you don't understand. But even more importantly, there's a long historical trajectory of disrespect. And it didn't start with this present High Commissioner, and neither with John Benjamin. It goes all the way back to Craig Morris in 2000. So over time, people who have watched the space about how British diplomats think we are still their hunting ground. Here they come to dip their beak in the diplomatic waters and then misbehave towards us, thinking that we will keep quiet and let it go. The maturity that Vladimir is talking about is maturity a little too late and a little too small. I agree with him that for the foreign ministry, that is their business, to dampen things. But you see, they ought to have acted quickly when the High Commissioner started behaving in ways that probably is not part of good diplomatic practice.
Right. So you have been listening to the Professor Kwesi Anyenini. You also heard Vladimir Antwi Danso. Vladimir Antwi Danso, and I have smiles on my face because he was my tutor, hall tutor. When I was in the Kwafo Hall.
Yeah, he was my dean of students.
Dean of students, okay, good.
My friend and my brother were in the same hall.
That's right.
So you were followed.
All right, so first I wanted to share some messages with you, but we have run out of time, so we'll go and deal with the issues a bit. Somebody sent me a message that's rather interesting. He says, when people are appropriating the lands for themselves privately, we are complaining. When they are using it for a church, at least that one we know that it's not going to them privately.
That one we are complaining.
Shall we complain? Someone says we don't have money, but we are spending. If you hear that the office of the chief of staff per month gets in excess of 20 million to spend, will you believe that? In excess of 20 million. Go check how much even the vice president's office gets in a month. So this is how we are running our country. Now, let's start with this. Let me go to, okay, you are the ranking on foreign affairs.
Yes.
So what do you make of what the IGP and the British High Commissioner have been embroiled in?
Very interesting debacle. But before I come to that, I'll be remiss if I don't quote this scripture on the last topic we're discussing. I beg you, just 30 seconds.
Okay.
1 Chronicles chapter 28, verses 2 and 3. King David rose to his feet and said, quote, "Listen to me, my fellow Israelites, my people. I had it in my heart to build a house as a place of rest for the ark of the covenant of the Lord, for the footstool of our God. And I made plans to build it. But God said to me, you are not to build a house for my name, because you are a warrior and have shed blood," unquote. So you want to build a cathedral, let's do it right so that God will accept it.
Well,
he rejected.
The Bible says you don't set out to build if you can't tell the cost.
Exactly, if you can't tell the cost.
Let's go on.
Exactly. And then we know also in Corinthians that God really wants us as Christians to keep our bodies holy, because he prefers to reside in us and not in buildings. Now, to be sincere,
have to be very brief about it because we have just 20 minutes.
Yes, I'll be very brief. To be sincere with you, Samson, we shouldn't have gotten here. There are clearly underlining matters. If you listen to Professor Vladimir Chudanso, you listen to Professor Kwesi Anyenini, they all recall historical antecedents. So the British High Commission has given us High Commissioners, Deputy High Commissioner. Greg Murray was a Deputy High Commissioner under Rawlins. John Benjamin under President Mahama. It appears to me that we are visiting the sins of these former diplomats on Her Excellency Harriet Thompson. Harriet Thompson's tweet, I have maintained, is innocuous. To say that Bakavomawo, fix the country convener, arrested again, I will be interested to see how this goes. That's all the tweet said.
It was not a question. She said, Oliver Bakavomawa, convener of Fix the Country movement, arrested again, comma, I understand for a motoring offense on his way to court. I will be interested to see where this goes.
Yes, I'll be interested to see where this goes. I don't see...
This is not meddling in our affairs?
No, I don't see
internal affairs.
Amended. There's been an ICJ decision on meddling. It has to be active. I mean, if the High Commissioner had taken steps to probably grant him asylum or say that, look, come to ignore the invitation or the summons and come seek refuge in my High Commission, and so that is my territory, and under international law, you know that, then the Ghanaian government cannot, proceed further, then that will have been meddling. So it's innocuous, but it's a historical, situation of all of these predecessors.
Like the IGP says, does this comment not suggest that our systems are not working and that perhaps Bakavomawa is being persecuted unnecessarily? Because he was going to court on that day, and then the charge that was giving him was that he was driving on he was breaching the road markings.
Yes.
He was not alone. They say other people were arrested.
I mean, perhaps the High Commissioner could have raised these matters through the usual diplomatic channels, through the foreign ministry.
Yes.
Then the IGP as well. Yes. You escalate this matter, raise your concern with your boss, the Minister for the Interior, who will then have a discussion with the Foreign Minister. That's how these things work. It does appear to me that there have been all manner of if you like, excesses because of emotions and anger. If you read the IGP statement, the 4-page statement carefully, you see a lot of emotion.
It was biased. He said that her comments were biased, uninformed,
and the worst part is Deufiasm.
Yes.
I mean, look, a security chief doesn't talk to a diplomat that way, particularly when one of our threats now is terrorism. All our neighbors have been attacked, and we are talking about sharing intelligence. The Accra initiative is all about intelligence sharing, and you need all of these partners, to share intelligence with you, to help you. And I know of the extensive support that we are receiving from our international partners. So that Deufiasm, was going too far. I think that the IGP overreached. He went overboard. He should have had a discussion with the Interior Minister. Then the Foreign Minister will come in. So I commend the Foreign Ministry for the statement they have issued. The Foreign Ministry is now showing leadership, is de-escalating, and is seeking to achieve some rapprochement.
Yeah.
And I think that's
all right.
the way.
Professor Piaget, did Dr. George Akufo Dampari do anything wrong? The statement said, ordinarily, the Ghana Police Service would not have responded to comments such as yours, obviously made from either a biased or uninformed position. However, we have learned from a previous painful experience that it has not been helpful to ignore such misguided, unwarranted, and biased comments intended to tarnish the reputation of the Ghana Police Service and that of our country. So this is why he was responding to her. And he said also that, what is more, we consider your tweet as a violation of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations 1961, which enjoins diplomatic missions not to interfere in the internal affairs of their host country. The IGP is concerned. We all agree he's doing a good job trying to bring some sanity. I know people who are beginning to nitpick on some of the excesses and blame him that he's actually worse. It's not the best of IGPs we can have. But we all can confess that this IGP deserves all our support because he's bringing some sanity.
I think the IGP, first of all, is not a diplomat. And so we may excuse some excesses with regard to the tone of the letter. However, I'm completely in agreement with the fact that he had to intervene, and he intervened. Because one, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs should have done that first, because the tweet clearly constitutes interference in the internal affairs of Ghana. That is clear in the Vienna Treaty on Diplomatic Relations. Article 41 is clear that as a diplomat, you're not supposed to interfere in internal affairs of other countries. However, that position has been punctured, or there's a way around it where if it's about a serious human rights violations, for example, other states are allowed to comment on, and you cannot claim interference. So in my opinion, that doesn't fall into that category. So it's clear that the High Commissioner has remarked constitutes interference to the internal affairs of Ghana. The same convention also talks about the fact that the ambassador can collect information or ascertain legally, the word used is legally ascertain developments in the country. But that information is to be reported to the government of the sending states, not to be disseminated through a tweet. And so while the High Commissioner may have found some information through her ascertainment, which is required by the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, she's not supposed to put it in that language and put it through a tweet. So the IGP was right in responding, because he has to protect the integrity of the institution he's holding.
All right.
And
so
if it is a case
so Prof, the question is it the part where she says she will be interested in how the matter goes, that is the interference, or saying what we all knew at the time, that Oliver Mausi Bakavamo had been arrested for a motoring offense, which Oliver himself also put out in the public anyway.
It is saying that they'll be interested in knowing how things will go. It's as if they are the overlords and we are in a social relationship with them, and they are controlling, watching over us and telling us what to do and what not to do. That is where the interference is.
People have asked the question, really. They are paying for literally everything you are doing around. If you check the security agencies, we have just been told how many vehicles they are bringing to assist our security. There are many high-profile, things I have moderated or even hosted, and I discovered that they are paying for literally everything in this country, and the government is only paying salaries. So what is the issue of interference? I know, for example, in the justice delivery system, they play a lot of roles financially, helping out to do a lot of things, even setting up courts.
Well, one thing we should note is that there's nothing like a free lunch. And there has been this relationship that has been built even right from the time of slavery through colonialism up to now. And it has never worked for the good of the colonized or those who were enslaved or in this period of neocolonialism. So whatever they give to us, they have a reason for giving that to us, which ends up benefiting them more than benefiting Ghana. Otherwise, if you look at how much money has been pumped into the economy by the British, Ghana would have been better off. But it doesn't show. One, because if you're talking about the security issue, for example, they don't look at the fact that it should primarily benefit Ghana, but it should primarily benefit them first. And the benefit we are getting is incidental. If you are talking about drugs, they say that they are helping you to deal with drug trafficking and so on. It's because they don't want the drugs to end up on their shores in the first place. So that is why they are doing that.
All right.
And they'll prefer that the drugs to be left on the shores of Ghana and we will rather consume it. Number two, if you look at trade and if you look at trade relations, it has always not been our interest. We are still in a colonial monoculture economy and we are exporting raw materials to them. They will manufacture and send them back to us. If they are giving us aid, according to some statistics, about 87 cents of every dollar that is sent to a developing country goes back to the aid donor. So what are we benefiting from? So I think that in that sense, we are not enjoying anything special that we should say that we should kowtow and not respect for them not to respect our sovereignty. That is critical.
What is the difference that should be drawn between a high commissioner speaking and, for example, the U.S. State Department visiting our prisons, checking our human rights records, and issuing statements each year, and like they issued not long ago, telling us how bad our situation was and corruption was in the country?
Yes, I made a point that each country enjoys sovereignty, but this sovereignty is not absolute. It has been compromised, or it has been reduced in certain respects because of the fact that there have been other actors that have been introduced into international law and international relations. Talk about even individuals. And so in that respect, basically, international organizations have a lot of influence in what happens in a particular country. And when it comes to human rights, when it comes to terrorism, such issues, you cannot claim to have your independence intact, and therefore nobody can question that.
Okay.
So
Prof, we have run out of time, but I realize that we put two issues together and it doesn't look like we have time, but maybe spend a minute and let's have your comments on the quote, let's say it as bluntly as it is, the illegal, unconstitutional request to the police for a demonstration by the group of people under the Fix the Country. What do you say about that?
Well, I think that on all fours, it was not appropriate for them to issue that request and to say that they want to go on a demonstration and go with their own security personnel. We are a country of laws. We are party to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. It talks about peaceful assembly, but subject to national security, public morality, and so on. The African Charter on Human and People's Rights say the same thing. We have a anti-terrorism act which says the same thing. We cannot go on demonstration using arms. The Criminal and Other Offences Act also talks about that, Section 206. So from every angle, they didn't have the power to do what they wanted to do, going on demonstration with arms.
Thank you very much, Professor Kwadwo Appiagyei Etia. You should spend a minute on that, then we end with Penka.
I've already condemned what they did. I mean, they look, I've been an activist for many years, NUC's president, CJA, and we never, went on demonstration.
How do you take their apology?
With arms. I think that it's good they apologize, and they should demonstrate that they really, are back on the path of righteousness. Look, they are raising important issues. Police brutalities. As we speak, there are 7 people killed during the 2020 elections. No justice. I'm still at Shraj with Honorable Boa seeking justice. In Kranza, then there was Ejura, there was Tamale, Akachi. These things cannot continue. So they are raising important issues. Corruption, prioritization. They should not spoil their case. I mean, I admire Bakafoma very, very well. Sharp intellect, a patriot extraordinaire. He shouldn't mar that image and his great reputation, by engaging in things like that. Let's take it as just one terrible slip, and that, they can return on the great, effort that they are working on to make our country better and improve the living conditions of our people. So
all right.
It's just unfortunate.
Yes, sir. So,
Samson,
IGP versus the commissioner, and then
most unfairly treated because I have very little time to say what I wanted to say. I have a lot to say on this matter.
Yes.
And I had actually
proceed.
Straight away. You see, I just want to situate you in the context of international law. And if you look at 3 international legislations, the Peace of Westphalia, which was signed on the 24th October 1648, and then you look at the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations of 1961, and then the Montevideo Convention on Rights and Duties of States. Just quickly, I'll refer you to Article 41, which Prof referred to, of the Vienna Convention.
That's what the police refers to.
Yes, it's very important that I repeat that, 41.1. And then also Article 8 and Article 11 of the Montevideo Convention on Rights and Duties. If you look at Article 8, now you have Article 8. No state has the right to intervene in the internal or external affairs of another. Very clear. That's Article 8 of the Montevideo Convention. Then if you read, as I indicated, Article 1 and then 11, the last part of it, the territory of a state is inviolable and may not be the object of military occupation or of other measures of force imposed by a state directly or indirectly or for any motive whatever, even temporarily. All those ones are guides and aids if you look at all these three international pieces of legislation. So I would say that, first of all, the medium of communication by the ambassador or the high commissioner was an error. We have to proceed on that. Maybe the response may have been high-handed by the IGP and could have been channeled maybe through the diplomatic channels of using the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But I would say that someone goofed and then the response had to come. And so it is only a guide for us moving forward because we are all independent and sovereign entities and one should not be seen as supervising the other in the running of internal affairs. Okay. That would be contrary to laid down rules of international law as known by all of us.
Okay. The demonstration. The
demonstration, when I read, I sent initially the letter they sent. I sent a copy to a little boy of mine. He read it and then we had a very good laugh. You know, the exchanges we had to do. Yeah. I mean, some of the things were scary, isn't it?
Unmitigated disaster.
It was a complete disaster.
I don't know what happened.
And you know what? What shocks me most is the first time I encountered Oliver Bakavomao was on this platform. Yeah. And you interviewed him. Yeah. Now when I listened to him, very articulate, very intelligent, and very sharp.
Great guy.
And the things that I heard that he wrote, he authored. I must be honest with you, I thought that there was something else that I didn't know. Because I didn't believe that this was coming from an astute lawyer like that, somebody, a researcher. That could not have come from him. We could have pardoned any other citizen who wrote any such letter, but not a lawyer of his caliber.
So you don't take out his apology?
No, I think that his apology has come, but he shouldn't have done it at all.
Right.
He shouldn't have done it at all. But the apology, we all take it in good faith and move on.
All right. Thank you all so very much. You've been watching and listening to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform. With me, Samson Lardy Anyenini, and my guest, we had Mary Awalana Ada, Programs Manager, Ghana Integrity Initiative, Professor Kwejo Apieje-Tua, School of Law, University of Ghana, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, MP North Tongue and Ranking Member, Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament, Joseph Dindiok Pemka, former Deputy Attorney General and Minister for Justice. As always, my outfit is by Habil's Couture, and you can call them 0200 84 1988 0200 84 1988. Thank you very much for your company. Have a good afternoon.